Mark, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me.
Oh, you're very welcome, Melanie. Great to talk to you as always.
So you and I met from my family, just from living in Sussex County for eons and eons. So
Well, you're a lot younger than I am.
that is true. That is true. So I have been to many a wedding and bar mitzvah at Perona Farms. And your family has owned Perona Farms since the very early 1900s, since 1917.
Correct. Yeah, we're 103 years going this year, and next year will be 104. And we hope to make it to 104. The way things are going, it's pretty shaky down here, let me tell you.
So, Mark, how are you involved with the business, and what's your role within Perona Farms?
Well, I have one brother and one sister, and we're the three owners, so to say. I work very closely with my son, who's a general manager, and my daughter, who's a director of catering director, really handles all the sales and stuff. And she has 3 or 4 people who work under her. We have 135 or so employees that work here at Perona Farms, staff members. And it's very difficult right now because there's no staff in the building with the exception of maybe 8 of us on a daily basis. There's 3 guys in the kitchen. There's 1 person in cleaning, and there's family. That's about it. So there's only 8 or 9 people in the building. And, we're doing some takeout meals, which hopefully are going to continue, but it's not a real profitable entity. Don't forget, we're not an a la carte restaurant here. We're basically banquets, weddings, and parties. Weddings make up 90% of our business. And right now we've canceled over 100, not canceled, but rescheduled 130 weddings.
Wow.
130 plus weddings from March through the end of July. So right now we're hoping for some kind of an August 1st opening, but we're concerned about what's going to happen on August 1st. Is it going to be a 50% capacity? Are they going to let us be at 100% capacity? What are the rules going to be? Do we have to put a piece of plastic in front of the bartender at the bar? Can you walk up to a bar? There's a lot of things that aren't known yet. So, and we get tons of questions on a weekly basis from brides who are calling us, who are having weddings in September and October and November and December. And I think, it's very difficult for us to answer a lot of questions because we haven't got a lot of response from the governor's office as to what the rules are going to be and how they're going to be implicated and how they're going to be handled. So I guess the best answer that we have is something my son said to somebody on the phone the other day is, we have an HR department, we have an operations department, we have a kitchen department. We do not have a hypothetical department. So we can't answer a lot of questions because we don't know.
Right.
We're in the same position, and there's a lot of brides out there and parents of brides and worried about what's going to happen to my wedding for 200 people. Can I have it? Can I have it in September? Can I have it in January of next year? We don't know. We're doing our best, and we're about 8 weeks ahead right now. So that means that we're working on the end of July right now and making sure that those weddings are all relocated. And then we're worrying about, what's going to happen in August. And hopefully every day when the governor comes on and a new week starts, there's some new guidance from the governor's office as to what's going on. But so far there's been restaurant guidance, but nothing about venues, which kind of disturbs us quite a bit. I don't think we're in the position of Giant Stadium where you're buying a ticket, or a theater where you're buying a ticket to somebody and you're sitting next to someone you never saw before, don't know who they are.
Right.
At least at a wedding, we have a confirmed guest list, and you're going to be at Uncle Harry's table, and Uncle Harry. It's not like you're sitting next to Joe Smith, who you've never seen before, ever met before in his stadium and I think they're kind of trying to group us in that kind of category, and I think that's wrong.
So in a normal situation, in a pre-COVID world, how many events were you doing per week in the wedding season, which would probably start when? Around end of April, early May?
It starts the first week in April, really. We do about 10 weddings every single weekend.
Wow.
5 days a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and Mondays. Tuesdays and Wednesdays aren't real popular days for weddings, but they will be in the fall because that's when a lot of brides move to. You know, brides that originally were set for Saturday in June are now at a Thursday in December, or a Saturday or a Friday in January of 21. So there's been a lot of changes. So, you know, we do about 350 weddings a year on average, and
Wow.
about 40 or 50 or 60 other corporate parties that take place, meaning Boy Scouts and PSS and Selective Insurance, and a lot of the different Renetco, a lot of big companies that have parties with us, which have all been postponed and canceled, basically. You know,
Right.
we're involved with the Wine and Roses event for the hospital, which is a big customer as well. A lot of those events are canceled. Golf outings, we don't have any dinners for golf outings anymore because they've all been postponed or rescheduled, or no more dinners. It's strictly a cocktail party or a boxed lunch to take home. So a lot of that business has gone by the wayside, and we're just hoping that it comes back kind of the way it is. It's very hard to say to a bride, hey, you know, you've been planning since it's kind of like the Cinderella story. You were planning since you were, you know, 4 years old or 5 years old, and you saw Cinderella and said, hey, I really want to get married, and Perona Farms is the place I want to get married at. And now, you know, it's kind of, if you were scheduled for June, that great summer day, which, you know, we just had last weekend, you said, boy, that was my wedding day, and look what happened. And now
Right.
I'm scheduled for a Thursday in December because those are the only dates we had available. And our unfortunately for a lot of the brides is, it's not like they could move from a Saturday in June to another Saturday in June because it was booked already.
Right.
Next year was already booked completely for weddings. So we only had certain dates available that we offered to the brides. It's not our fault. It's not the bride's fault. It's somebody's got to take the blame for it, but it's kind of a tough situation.
So you guys do a brunch as well, you know, for certain days of the year, and you also have a weekly brunch that I've been to before with my family, and the food is amazing. And you have different areas inside your venue where you can have specific events.
Yeah, we do. We have areas where we do brunch, but right now that area is under construction. We're doing a huge construction area. We're building a new facility where our Venetian room was, where we did brunch for many, many years, since 1974. We're opening up an area called the Refinery. The Refinery will not be done until April of 21. And we have a lot of weddings booked in there as well. So I think that's when you're going to see brunch continue again. We canceled brunch this entire year with the elimination of brunch, but we did have some pop-up brunches scheduled that we're using the other room for, the reserve. And unfortunately, most of those pop-up dates where we did have a date available, we could do brunch on a Sunday, have all gone by the wayside already now. And now they're all taken with weddings and parties who have relocated. So I doubt you're going to see brunch for the rest of the season, but don't forget, we started brunch in 1974. We're the first restaurant in New Jersey to ever do brunch. And it's been very successful. Everybody said, oh, it's, you know, a terrible thing. You don't want to do brunch in New Jersey, only do that in Florida and California. But we persevered. I think the first week we had 6 people for brunch, and it improved the next week. We had 11, but 7 were family. So it really went down, went from 6 to 4, but we kept doing it. And, you know, before we closed in December, we do about 400 every Sunday for brunch.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I've been to the brunch before. It's really good. You guys always have an amazing selection.
But now who knows what's going to happen where you can't do buffets? You know, are buffets going to be allowed again? Is that ever going to happen again? And our brunch was a huge buffet where there was so much stuff out there, and, you know, people are scared to handle a utensil that somebody else touched. I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, the one thing I noticed when I was on your website just browsing is you have this to-go market. And one of the things that intrigued me was you have a mimosa kit, which I think would be really popular amongst ladies who like to brunch and gentlemen who like to brunch. The mimosa kit I thought was great with the charcuterie kit. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, we have a smoked salmon kit, a mimosa kit. We had a Bloody Mary kit.
That's awesome.
We had a charcuterie kit. We did all those special things just as an add-on. Because we've got, you know, we have a lot of salamis and stuff, which we figured we were going to be using the entire time for the weddings, you know, and we'd be remaking salamis and stuff. We make all the charcuterie right here, and we make our own smoked salmon, of course. And unfortunately, all that stuff was sitting back there. So we said, hey, let's start moving it, and we'll put these kits together to move it. And you don't want the Bloody Mary mix to sit there forever in the
Right.
back kitchen. Then we add spices to it to make it our own kind of blend. So there was some advantages to doing it, moving some stuff that was just sitting there. We gave a lot of the beer bottles that were sitting back there, gave them to the staff because they're going out of date. We got to disconnect all the kegs, and we'll see if they're going to replace the kegs for us in the keg systems. But it's a totally crazy time, let me tell you. Stuff we never expected that we're doing right now.
So I'm interested to know from you, Mark, back when Perona Farm started and the story, I read up a little bit about it, but I was wondering if you would be able to tell me the story about Perona Farms and how it started in 1917.
Sure. My great-grandfather was Emil Perona. He was a vaudeville musician, okay, who played the accordion and had his accordion hooked up to electronic bells. So every time he played a note on the accordion, it played on the electronic bell system that he designed behind him. And he played all over the world. He played in London during the Zeppelin raids of World War I. He played in Australia. He played in India. He played in New Zealand. He played in Mexico. He was in South America. He played all over. He was a very famous musician. They called him Perona, the Italian master. And then he came to northwestern New Jersey and decided he wanted to be a farmer. That was his idea. And he bought 300 or 400 acres. After he sold his accordion for $300, he probably bought 300 acres for $300 here in Andover. And, unfortunately, Mrs. Perona was a pretty good cook. And farming wasn't real profitable back during, the early 1900s. I'm talking 1915, 16. He opened up a restaurant because Mrs. Perona was a pretty good cook in 1917. But, that started helping to pay the farming bills. One advantage is that Mr. Perona had two brothers in New York, John and Joe Perona, that ran a place called the El Morocco. Now, the El Morocco was in the 1920s in New York. What Studio 54 was in the 1970s in New York was the place to go. If you were a celebrity or a star, you went to the El Morocco. And the story is that Perona Farms had a lot of apple trees, and therefore they were able to make a lot of apple jack. And the building is still there behind my house on the property. And they made a lot of apple jack, and they put it in radiators and went through the Holland Tunnel and brought it into the El Morocco. And in exchange for the liquor, which only the El Morocco had during Prohibition in New York, no one else did. All the celebrities knew where to go to get liquor if they wanted it. Mr. Perona's brothers used to say to the celebrities, gee, why don't you go to my brother's place in the country? And, you can stay there for a few days and there's no press and this kind of stuff. And, you're all by yourself up there. And they did. And they came and they came and they came and they came. They opened up the Gristmill Playhouse in the 1960s in Andover. And they had a lot of actors' equity talent. And people like Dick Van Dyke and Burgess Meredith and all these people starred at the Gristmill. And it was a very nice situation that back in those days in the, I guess, early 1960s when I was a kid, we used to serve like 300 dinners between 5:30 and 7:30. Wow. And then they'd all go to the Gristmill at 8 o'clock. And at 8 o'clock, we'd get a whole new crowd in. And we'd have another 300 people. So maybe we'd serve 500 people on a Saturday night. And they'd go to the Gristmill and they'd come back out at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. And back then there was no closing. So the people from the Gristmill, all the actors and actresses who stayed with us, because there were no hotels in the area either. We had bungalows and hotels. I mean, I used to swim in the swimming pool outside. And during the, on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, people like Ethel Merman and Jimmy Durante and Sid Caesar, these people would be here every single weekend. And my parents and grandparents would say, gee, would you watch Mark in the pool? So my babysitters were pretty famous actors and actresses in the old days. And then what happened was the Gristmill started bringing in inferior talent. And therefore, the people didn't buy the subscriptions anymore. So business kind of went down a little bit. But so I said to my parents, how'd you ever let the Gristmill stop? You should have just kept paying, because that was great. Even though dinner back then was, $1.95 for a chicken dinner, and Manhattan cocktails cost 25 cents. But, it was big back then. We did a lot of business from the Gristmill. And then ultimately and we did a lot of a la carte business in the 70s. And then ultimately in the 80s, we decided it's probably better to just do banquets. So we started in 1985, just doing weddings and parties and brunch. And it seemed to work out well. We've done very well and been very successful and able to add on to the building and, give brides what they want. We constantly, we opened up the barn in
Which is so beautiful.
2013, we opened up the barn. And the barn's been a big hit because people like that idea. Now you'll see a lot of other places opening barns. And we've got other ideas too. We're going to do stuff that other people haven't thought of yet. And we'll be the first ones to do them. But
That's
right
great.
now we can't do anything with COVID because there's no income and nothing happening.
Well, if somebody wanted to catch up with what Perona Farms is up to, what would be the best way for them to contact Perona Farms, follow Perona Farms?
Yeah, I think Perona Farms, we have an info@peronafarms.com website where you can get info and request info if you want. You can call up. I mean, generally, the family members are here all day long. We don't answer the phones now. The banquet staff answers the phones, and then they give us a message if, they want us to call somebody back, or, a friend of my father's who's coming home from Florida next week. He's already 89 years old. He'll be back from Florida next week, and I'm sure he'll walk around the construction project. And so people call up and say, is Victor still there? And we say, yes, he is. Do you want to talk to him? Sure. We'll put him on the phone. And then my father will say, who's this guy I'm talking to? I have no idea who it is. but it's still a lot of fun because you do get a lot of people that have been coming here. We got customers who have been coming here for 60 years, 65 years, that have been long time customers. And, that's kind of the part you miss about the a la carte business, where you saw those people on every single week, or twice a week or 3 times a week for dinner. And now you kind of don't see them, but you do see a lot of people coming to weddings. And, we're very happy to say that we've had, 4 different groups that have had 4 daughters get married here. And
Wow.
we just had one locally that just had their 5th daughter married here.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive. And the 5th daughter is free. So that's a very, very important point, that once you've had 4 weddings at Perona Farms, you go for number 5. It doesn't cost you anything. So they like that. And that family has a 6th daughter as well. So we're waiting for her to say, but that one's not going to be free, I don't think.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate your time.
No problem. Glad to talk to you. Anytime.